Welcome everyone. Thank you. I'm delighted that you came. And Carolina is there waiting for us. So I'm going to introduce Carolina. She's living actually in Ibiza, and she's an international speaker. She has written a book about the discipline of peace. And she organized once a year an event in Ibiza in which she brings people who are lovers of the Course in Miracles and gathers them in around. I don't know what you do. You will have to say a few more things about what you do over there. But yeah, I mean, I happened to meet Carolina by chance, by an accident. It was through communication, through Janet, who said they were looking for someone speaking Spanish-speaking person to do an interview, and then I happened to find myself interacting with her. I think I was really struck by how much she was able to, I don't know, come from a place of presence, from peace, and I was really, really engaged into some sort of conversations, which in fact we still are conversating about themes and on topics. And I was just having such a good time. I thought this would be very nice to bring this topic, especially around relationships in the foundation, in the community. We explored, I think we're going to this topic constantly. And I think it's such a rich topic to explore. I thought maybe it would be nice to bring her perspective. All right, so Carolina, maybe you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being there, and especially Javier. Thank you for inviting me. And yes, we have an ongoing conversation, brought together by this chance opportunity to interview you. That was my opportunity to interview you, and then here I am, ending up speaking to a group of members of the community of the Findhorn Foundation, and I'm really blessed and happy. A little bit more about me is I'm originally from Venezuela. Even though I live in Spain, I'm half Spanish. My father was Spanish. And I've been living here for about 12 years. I dedicated my life to A Course in Miracles back in the year 2000, even though I had been studying it since 1991. And I am fully devoted to the teachings of peace contained in A Course in Miracles. And it was through these teachings and through my work, which is teaching in Spanish and English. I also speak Portuguese, so I've been to Brazil to teach. And I do workshops, classes, conferences, whatever I'm invited to join in. And since 2013, we, as a response to an inner calling of bringing teachers and students together from different countries, we put together what we call the Ibiza Enlight Festival here in Ibiza. And it's called A Celebration of Healed Relationships, as per the teachings of A Course in Miracles. So people who are lovers of the Course, like Javier said, he said that, lovers of the Course, or just students of the Course, teachers, whoever's interested in the Course in Miracles has an invitation to come to Ibiza once a year for a 9-day retreat, really intense, where we study together, we join, and we find truth amongst our apparent differences. So from that, I see that I resonate very much to the way the community where you guys live is based on all of you from different places, different countries, and doing everything with love and going beyond the form, which makes a difference amongst us, apparently, into what makes us the same, which is the love. So I'm totally for that. And my book, The Discipline of Peace, was published here in Spain in Spanish a couple years ago, 2017. I'm currently translating it into English. And I'm working and teaching with it as well. So yeah, so much for an introduction. If later you have more questions or you want to know a little bit more about me, I'm happy to answer your doubts. I have a website, carolinacorada.com, that in English and Spanish, that you can access later on if you're curious to learn a bit more about me. So I've been a Findhorn fan for, I don't know, for as long as I remember. I've followed what you do there, how you do it, the tools and the meetings and the opening up to peace, which is my ultimate goal in life. And I feel so blessed to be having this opportunity of joining, especially around the topic of peace in our relationships, as approached by A Course in Miracles and also in my book, The Discipline of Peace. So maybe before we begin, we could join in a prayer together. Just take an instant, just take, so that we can choose to all be joining in a purpose. And I can just do a short prayer. Just take a deep breath. Holy love, eternal, self, infinite, formlessness, I called forth your presence, your love, and your guidance. For we have met here today, these brothers and sisters, on behalf of opening up more to finding peace in all our relationships. So on behalf of peace and the presence that you bring, Holy One, I choose, I invite everyone and join with you on behalf of peace, so that this coming together has one sole purpose. May that purpose be peace of mind. I have no other purpose. I surrender this instant to you, beloved one. And receive all your gifts, as we all do. Amen. So when Javier and I were talking about this conversation that we were going to have, he sent me like a short text of the possibilities. And one of them was, if I could speak a bit about what I referred to when I said the phrase discipline of peace, which is the name of my book. This is my book. I only have a Spanish cover, so this is it right here. the discipline of peace. I'll just introduce this idea and see how it sits with you all. Please interrupt me and ask me whatever you want, whenever you want. So, as a student for many years in the training, I realized that when I started my spiritual journey, which was at a very young age, I had a meditating mother. I was born in the 60s, and my mother was already a meditator, and she was a yoga student, and this was very rare in Venezuela, my home country. So my whole family was into some sort of spirituality. So there was a very early calling in my heart, and there was also a calling to honesty and acknowledgement of the way I felt. And I was very passionate, and in this passion itself, I also found that this passion itself was most of the time in conflict. And I realized this at a very young age, maybe in my early 20s. And I started opening up to find how would I be able to experience myself in peace, because I read so much about peace, and it was always, at least what came to me at that time, it was always around political peace, about truce, among warring countries, or about feeding people and educating people. And this was what the companies or the groups that were working around peace, this was the sort of peace that was aimed at. But this, in my heart, was not enough. It felt that finding peace was a more personal, more intimate journey. And I opened up. In my prayers, in my meditations, I opened up to discovering what that would be. Then when I was around 30, I found the Course in Miracles. Well, it actually found me. Somebody brought it to my house. And as I started reading, I realized that there was a choice to be made between conflict and peace, between fear and love. Very gently, I realized this. And as I carried on practicing A Course in Miracles, maybe many of you already know it. I know that there is one or two groups in the Findhorn Foundation or in the little towns around it that study the course. As I trained my mind using the lessons, I realized that the only way to actually have an experience of inner peace was to choosing it above everything else. And this sounded very religious, but it was a very clear calling in my heart. I'd never been religious, even though our family was very spiritual. We were really not Catholics or Protestants or Baptist or Buddhist. There was no religion practice at home. But of course, I come from a Catholic country, and I have heard so many times everywhere the phrase saying, choose God above all else and everything will sit in place. And I thought, oh, wow, okay. And then as time rolled by, the word God in my heart was exchanged for peace. Peace being the ultimate goal, not a man, not an association to a particular being, but the certainty and the clarity that what I was seeking for was an experience. And by reading the course, I realized that it was an experience that was attainable here and now, in this moment, in this lifetime, in this human experience. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. So I started realizing that through meditation, I reached states of inner peace that were easily lost in my everyday life. I was a divorced mom with twins, so my peace was easily lost in that identity. And then again, I questioned that. Is it true that just because I have twins and I'm divorced, just because I'm a hardworking mom, just because I have parents, old parents to take care of, peace is meant to be lost for me? Do I have to go through all my human responsibilities first before peace can reach me, or before I can experience peace? And the inner answer was a big no. The inner answer was, peace is here now. And then I thought, I questioned myself. I've always been known amongst my friends and students and fellow teachers to be one of constant self-inquiry, constant asking myself, is this true? Is this how I feel? And then just self-checking over and over again. So when the world that I lived in was not the source of peace, I realized that the peace that I was seeking for was actually seeking for me, was calling me from within, and it had nothing to do with the shift in the external world, and all to do with my own choices. And I knew the Course in Miracles have something to say about this. So I went through the lessons again and again. I don't know how many times I've done the Course in Miracles training program, the 365 mental lessons. And there's one that stuck to me more than the rest. And it said, I can choose peace instead of this. This was a call or a lesson that was given to us with the intention to remember it every time there was the invitation from the ego mind to lose peace because there was an event happening in the world. There was a fight, the children were fighting, or my parents were too demanding, or I was tired, for whatever reason. And I realized that every time I came back to my inner self and asked myself, can I really choose peace above all this? I realized that in my mind, there was a possibility to ascend above the battlefield, above the human life, and experience a peace that had nothing to do with my human experience and all to do with my choice. So gently, 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 without even being aware, all my teaching and my studies started to shift toward that idea, toward that practice. Can I choose peace above my diabetes diagnosis? Can I choose peace over the death of my father? Can I choose peace over the excitement of a new festival? And then I realized how this awareness of the possibility to choose peace was taking me from the dual mind to the one mind. From some things bring me peace, some things don't, to nothing brings me peace. I am peace. I just have to choose the experience over and over, direct my attention to it and find it within. So slowly, slowly, this book that I wrote came about. And it came about as the result of a practice group here in Ibiza. I'm so lucky and so blessed and honored to have a group of about 20 people who decided to join in this training towards accepting that peace is a possibility now as an experience, having nothing to do with changing the external world and all to do with making an inner choice. So when we embarked on this journey together, we decided to record those classes, those lessons. And after 2 years, my daughter and I, talking about my book or whatever not, she said, why don't we use this material? Is so beautiful, and it's only touched the ones who were here in presence. So we edited and put it together in the form of a book. And the name came later. I had no idea that I was practicing the discipline of peace. But once the book was together, the title of it and the whole concept of it was very, very strong and powerful within my mind and heart. And I ran the name through my students, and they all said, wow, that's exactly what we do. We discipline our minds to choose peace over and over and over and over. And there's a very simple explanation, and then I'll hand the word over to Javier again. We have this idea of radio station. Imagine a radio station, and we've got the AM and the FM possibilities. And then when we live in the ego mind all the time, it's an AM kind of radio where conflict is there and happiness is there sometimes, but then there's pain and sadness and frustration and doubt and fear. And then there's a little bit of joy and happiness and a little bit of sex and great food and trips, and then the conflict and blah, blah, blah. And then there's the FM that we can reach only through choice, through surrendering this one. You cannot be in both at the same time. So what we realized as a group was that as we begin to acknowledge, to become aware that peace was already there, and we, like the FM, and we just have to change the channel, choose it. We began making this choice, and then going back to the AM, choice, back to the AM, until there was a transition where we started vibrating and thriving on this FM, and the conflict was reduced to a minimum experience, where whenever the toxic thoughts or anger or whatever human experience came about, it stood out like a fly on a white wall. It stood out so much that vigilance was no longer necessary, because the experience of peace had set in all of us in such a way that what was not peace was so obvious to the trained mind that we would immediately surrender. We would immediately decide not to be right about this anger or this doubt, and then peace would take over immediately. So for me, for us, this is the discipline of peace.
So what is the difference between this and repression, denial, dissociation?
Yes, that's a good question. Thank you very much.
People are laughing here.
I see them, but they're laughing because you're like, shush. No?
Yeah, I want to go. Yeah, because this, I mean, the thing is within your circles, sometimes you are all in agreement with something because you are holding similar beliefs. But for people who are less familiar, I want to find out what is the difference.
Well, yeah, that's very interesting, because like I was mentioning before, sometimes, you know, when people meet me and ask me about the discipline of peace and my groups and whatnot, and maybe I'm smiling a lot or whatever. I don't know what people see in me, but I get a lot. People say, oh, what would you know about conflict? You look like nothing has happened to you. And it's funny, because if you ask me, you'd be surprised at how much pain and suffering and catastrophe has been faced by the life of Carolina, you know, this life. So this whole thing, precisely for me, the way I've practiced it and developed it, and more than developed it, I don't think I developed it. I think I just practiced it, continuous practicing, and just talk a lot about it because I'm very interested, is precisely looking at the conflict in the face and giving it a name, identifying it. You know, if I'm angry or if there is no possible denial, because there's no possible peace in denial. Basically, part of the inner journey that we all need to endure is to be willing to look at what it is that has become an obstacle to peace. We don't need to look at peace because we don't even know where it is. We don't even know how to find it. But if we look at what is or what has become an obstacle to feeling at peace, if we are willing and with fear or without fear or with devotion, if we are willing to look at the dark corners of ourselves and expose them in the light, then there is a possibility for the peace within to rise more and more into our awareness. So absolutely, that's just the fantastic question that Javier has. I'm coming to know him a little bit more now. It's the perfect question. I mean, how can there be peace if we go into denial? But what we don't do, which might make a big difference in terms of psychoanalysis, if we're to compare it to psychoanalysis and other psychological practices, is we don't sit and dwell around the pain and the conflict for a long time to figure out where it came from and why and what's the origin. We just look at it. This is a conflict, this is a problem, this is fear or anger or whatever it is, and then we observe if we are willing to let it go. It's an observation and then a choice. For example, let me give you an example, because I'm not always surrounded by Course in Miracles students. I'm surrounded by Course in Miracles students once a week, but the rest of the time, I work around all sorts of people. For example, let me give you an experience at a women's shelter. This was a shelter I was invited to. It was a place where women would call, like, for example, a 911, you know, the help code for women who were in danger situations. They were being beaten up, or their life was menaced, or their children's lives. And this was a place where they could run to, and they would be taken in, protected, and helped out of their abusive homes. So I was invited to teach there. And it's interesting, you might think that a raped woman or a battered woman would not be the easiest individual to choose peace. But surprisingly enough, in the initial conversation, everyone justified their anger. I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm whatever, because this and this and this has happened to me, and this and this and this person is to blame. And this we can all understand. We've all been in certain situations where we thought that the other one was guilty, and our anger and sadness and victimization was justified. And then the next step to observing that is observing how feeling victimized feels. How do I feel when I am a victim of my circumstance? Where's my power? Where's my choice? And everyone would agree that it was completely lost. And then the next step was, are you tired of this situation? Are you willing for it to be differently? And the initial reaction is, oh, I'm not going to forgive that bastard. Why should I forgive him? And the whole point of this is not to forgive someone, but to find a beneficial state for yourself. So it's about how I feel. Has nothing to do with the other person. It has to do everything to do with how I feel. So the initial stages into the discipline of peace is to look within and honestly, without fear, humbly, just look, how do I feel? How do I feel? And then realize if being a victim is something I like, because I'm confused. Many people confuse victims with innocence. And this is a big confusion. We are all innocent in the light of truth. And this innocence that we want and that we want to experience can never be associated to victimization. But this is a very common victimization in our world, where victims are innocent. And many of these victims, this is my experience, I've worked with many, is once you accompany the victim to realize that innocence is elsewhere, they are willing to let go of their victimized self to open up to a more abstract experience where peace can be chosen. So, yeah, there's no peace for those in denial. Absolutely not.
Imagine that you are in a relationship with someone and this person is putting you down or doing something that doesn't feel appropriate or right. I guess you're not taking away the capacity to remove yourself, to say something. I guess there is something different. One thing is to work with your own sense of inner peace. Another thing is to take the action that is appropriate, no?
Of course, you know, when we speak of the discipline of peace, we're talking about inner work. And by no means am I suggesting that you stay in a relationship where your life is in danger, or where you feel abused, or you feel yelled at, or this is not the case. And there might be a confusion for those who are untrained, but the whole invitation of the discipline of peace is an inner invitation. And then what happens with the practicality of it? And we've all been there. I mean, I'm divorced. I tell you, I mean, it wasn't always a happy conversation. I have grown-up children. Our conversations were not always happy. And I've had roommates. Our conversations have not always been happy. But I've realized through time and practice of my own choosing is that when I am in conflict with the other, either because I'm seeing that I'm being bullied or because I lose my temper, either way, because sometimes, you know, in relationships, sometimes I'm blaming the other and sometimes I'm blaming myself. Sometimes I become the other one's victim and the other one becomes my victim. So in these circumstances, as in all, there is a profound training and a profound honest and humble development of myself to be able to look at myself, of what I'm doing honestly. I've seen myself in so many different circumstances. My last partner, whom I separated from perhaps 3 years ago, me being a teacher and whatnot of peace, I realized that at some points he triggered my darkest buttons. He did. And I was very grateful for that, because I had to exercise my such power from within to not become a bully myself. So we are not talking about a discipline that will be attained in a 2-hour conversation. because I think the experience of peace, the one that we are talking about, that is a peace that is not of this world, is a result of training, like a pianist. We go and we see the concert and they're playing beautifully for a couple of hours, and then we go home and we say, yeah, I want to do that too, and we don't. It doesn't happen because we need the training. And then, you know, I remember I trained for playing the piano. I have such small hands that it didn't work for me, but I was in pain for months and my hands hurt and I was frustrated and I couldn't do it until in my case I gave up the piano playing. But the same with anything that is that we can achieve, being it peace of mind, being it community living. It's not without a challenge. I don't think it's without a training. I think there's a development of characteristics from within, such as devotion and prayer and surrender and humbleness and empowerment. And I think they all come together. For some of us, some characteristics need to be developed first. For example, there's a teacher here whom I love dearly. She was one of my first students here on the island, and she's a teacher herself now. And with the help of this training, she's realized that her greatest challenge is to say no. This is her greatest challenge. And she's at practice right now in her relationship with her partner, in her relationship with her daughter. She's had to face the consequences of being a very people-pleasing person and the anger that that generated in her. She was the one who was a people pleaser. And then she was making the other one guilty for making her do what she didn't want to do. It's really, how could I say, confusing. And then with the help of her inner training and her inner teacher and the sights of inner peace, that she started to develop the power to say no in a very loving way without feeling guilty. So I think we all, depending where we are at and in our relationships, we need, I think, first we need to choose. Am I more interested in winning a battle or in peace? What is my choice? And then if my choice is peace, I thoroughly believe that the means to achieve it will come in place. But these means to achieve it are not without challenge.
Let me ask if there are any questions. Asking whether you have more steps that we heard so far. One. Do you have more steps?
You've heard only one. I would have to rewind. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. Yes. We can narrate that.
Can you repeat the steps?
Yes, of course. The first step is a choice. Do I want peace or do I want conflict? And I'm not sure, you know, these steps are not written down in my book. I'm Venezuelan, you know, I'm not American. So I know so many help self books who say, okay, these are the keys, these are your challenges, and these are the steps. I've never done that like that. There's like a different style to the way I teach, but I'll try to extend as best I can what you're asking me for. So there are, let me see, I'm just in front of my computer, and I'm just remembering that recently someone from Colombia asked me a question like this, and I think I wrote something down. Let me give me an instant, and I'm going to find it, because oh, here it is. Right. Okay. The key. Okay. Yeah. So I'm opening this up. Okay. Okay. The first step, or the key, one of the keys, is to discover what is more important for me, peace or winning. And then allow myself to observe this. Allow myself to observe this without judging myself. Maybe at this point I want to win. So this is one. I observe, do I want peace or do I still want to win? My invitation is to go into peace as a choice, but maybe your answer is winning. So you observe this desire to win and ask myself, this is step 2, am I willing not to be right? It's all about willingness. And there is no correct answer. There is no correct answer. That's just the answer I have. And that's what I have to live up with. Maybe in some situations, I want to be right. And I can't be willing not to be right. And then in other situations, I want to be right. But when I ask myself, am I willing? There is a willingness on behalf of peace. Then there is a sense of a third, that would be a second step. A third step, can I observe the situation and be grateful for the opportunity it's bringing me? This is an important one. Yes. Can I be grateful for this situation? Grateful in terms, not because I like it, and this is a very extraordinary measure, but the power of gratitude is not new, I'm sure, to you guys. It was never new to me, but the power of gratitude helps me discover that everything is for a reason. I can benefit from everything. That's part of the power of gratitude. Then I can learn to see how I function within. Because if I'm willing to choose peace above everything, then I must be willing to feel gratitude for whatever is happening. Because when I bring myself to the possibility of feeling gratitude, then something inside shifts. I'm able to observe myself and I'm able to let go of the judgmental mind within that says this is good, this is not good. When I open myself and I see, wow, everything can benefit me for the ultimate goal, which is choosing peace. And then I take a step back and I observe myself again. How do I feel about this? How do I feel about everything that is happening? How I'm feeling, how I'm observing, how I'm listening to myself. This might sound for some very egocentric, but actually the ego wants you to look outside, not within. When we choose to look within, something is changing. Because what you will find within, maybe in the first layers, you will find envy, anger, frustration. But as you go deeper, there's only light to be found. So we do want to look first into those thick layers of hurt. And again, ask myself, am I willing not to be right? Is this truly who I am? Am I willing to make a different choice? And this is basically what it is. And then there is a component, I don't know if you can say that in English. There's a feature. There is a feature that is very important. Would I be willing to choose peace as a form of life? And again, it's all about willingness, observation, honesty. For me, honesty is like the key. It's chapter 4 of my book, and it's called Radical Honesty. For me, you can be honest with the events of the world and then go deeper and be honest with how you feel, and then go deeper with the honesty of how do I feel with regards to how I feel. For example, if I discover myself feeling envious, there's a deeper step of honesty that says, how do I feel about feeling envious? and observe this. It's about the undoing of this conflicting identity. So, yeah, you see, I'm not so good at stating the steps like this. Perhaps it's just the personality that I carry around. But basically, it has to do with an inner conversation all the time. Observation. In my case, there's prayer. Surrender. And who do I surrender to? I surrender to the Holy One. One of the basics is that I never do anything by myself. I don't believe that by myself will take me anywhere off this earth to a deeper experience, because the self that is alone is only alone or by myself in this world. When I choose truth, I am joined to the higher self. So my work entails opening up to working with the higher self. In the Course in Miracles, we call it the Holy Spirit. In some other places, people call it the Father, the Source, the Eternal Light, whatever you want to call it. But just to be aware that there is a development of trust where slowly, slowly, we begin to realize that if we've made the wrong choices, we need to make the right choices, but we need some inner help. So that's part of it too, the development of your conversation with the inner teacher.
Carolina, is it true that you hold the belief that peace is a choice, not an outcome, or not a result?
Yes. Thank you for asking me that.
I think because sometimes you can have this attachment to feel peace, but nevertheless you feel angry, and then you're having a conflict because you don't want to feel what you are feeling.
Yes. No? Wow. Thank you so much for that question. Yes, I do believe peace is a choice. This is why I call it the discipline of peace. I do believe peace is a choice. And maybe I'm feeling angry and frustrated. But in my case, I know that I can choose peace. But in order to choose peace, I must have admitted the training whereby I give greater value to peace than to anger. So I look at the anger and I say, yes, but I'm not going to justify this, and I let it go because I choose peace over and over again. Yes, just recently, I've had a couple of angry encounters and with a couple of friends, and the choice was so immediate that the ill feeling was gone quickly. I observed it and I said, I'm so angry. Why am I angry? And usually if I look at it, I can justify peace because this was so ridiculous. How can I push someone off the train for the most ridiculous idea? The most unjustified idea. And anger for me is never justified. So in my mind, peace is always justified. And when I choose it, I don't have to run for it because I choose it and it manifests. It's like it was there. And I know for a fact that it is there in everyone. There is no one where peace is not, because our very essence is peace. And where is the problem? The problem is in all the different layers of human emotion and human experiences that we've laid on top of the experience of peace. And these are the ones that we are called to shred away by relinquishing its importance, their importance, and relinquishing the judgmental mind that says this is more important than peace of mind. So again, there is no denial, and this is very important. The importance is the choice. What am I choosing? And then how do I know that I'm choosing peace? Well, the result is immediate. Well, you will feel it. It's like asking, how do I know that I'm having an orgasm? Oh, you will know. You know, definitely you will know. So this is the same. How do I know I'm feeling peace, the peace of God? You will know, because you will not be afraid of losing it. You will not be afraid of doing something wrong or right. There is an overtaking of this experience that shows you that it does not depend on anything in this world. And thus, you can't lose it. You can put your attention on something else, but it doesn't mean you've lost it. It just means you've placed your attention on something else. And you just need to refocus your attention on it and choose it again. You know, sometimes I have to be completely honest.
Yeah, be honest, Carolina.
Sometimes there is an abandonment thought. For example, like I said, my daughter's visiting from Prague, and she arrived like 3 days ago. And then yesterday, she spent, to my view, she spent most of her day texting with her boyfriend. And then this morning, she's sitting here and she's cracking up. And then this morning, I said, "You've been texting all day. You have," and then I heard myself, "You have abandoned me." And then we just laughed about it, because it's an old trigger. But to be honest, I had a very happy childhood. So this trigger in particular, for me, it comes before my childhood, before my humanity. It comes from the idea that the eagle thought it was abandoned by love. This is the way I feel it, because I can't point it in a place and time, in a particular human event of my lifetime. You know, I can't. But it comes sometimes, and then I just sit with it. And at the end, after I sit with it for a while, I just laugh, because I look around and I see, but how can I not be grateful? You know, so.
I want to maybe say something about or ask you about why we as human beings, we encounter similar situations over and over again. Is there a value in experiencing something that, well, or being able to come to peace with an experience that's showing up over and over again? Let's say that as a child I was maybe rejected or abandoned. Is there a value in you being face to face with that experience and coming into a place of peace, rather than saying, well, this situation is coming up because I have a belief and I don't deserve love or anything like that? Because that's very much how I see the Course in Miracles works. You try to identify what is in this experience that's trying to show me about my own, anything that gets in the way of peace. But the idea that I'm trying to put out here is that maybe the experience itself is something that needs to be met with peace. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. You know, you mentioned, for example, rejection. Let's say that as a child you think you were, or you remember being rejected, and then the idea of rejection comes back again and again and again. Yeah. Now, can we look at that and realize honestly, humbly, that rejection is a judgment? Rejection is an opinion. It's an evaluation of a particular event. Mm-hmm. Yes? Something is happening and I'm feeling rejected. I'm feeling rejected. Is rejection actually happening? Or, like I said before, is the house small or big? Is the event actually happening, or is it the way I feel? For me, the way I have experienced this, when the same idea or the same experience comes over and over again, it's not about the event repeating itself, but my judgment repeating itself, my belief in rejection repeating itself. So in my inner work, The work pertains to abandoning my idea of rejection, being willing not to be right about the idea of rejection. And then the ego mind, who is the one who wants all the explanations, might think, but how does that work? I need to understand it. And in my line of work, it's not about understanding. It's about accepting first and then allowing it to explain itself. We are working with mysticism. It's not a science. It's an abstract possibility that can be measured. Yes, it can be measured by your own feelings and emotions, by your own life. But if I have felt, and this has been true for me for so many years with different experiences, some for many years repeated themselves until I took the time to observe what was happening and took full responsibility of it, observed it, and said, what is this belief? This is my belief in abandonment. Okay. Am I willing to let this go? As if I was dropping a hot potato. Am I willing to let this go? And then if I'm honest, maybe I observe that I'm not willing, that I still value this belief because it offers me innocence, victimization. It offers me some kind of power. You know, the ill and the attacked and the victims have a power. They have the power to call the others guilty. So this is, for me, this is why it repeats itself until I let go. And then the events might come again, but the experience is not rejection. The experience is, oh, they're interested in the movies instead of A Course in Miracles class, but I no longer feel rejected. So it's not about the event changing, it's me releasing my interpretation of the event itself by allowing a change in the belief. It's all, for me, the way we teach with the Course in Miracles and with my book, it's all about a shift of perception, a change of a thought system. We have a thought system based in fear, based in loss, that justifies fear in all its presentations. And there is a possibility to be chosen, which is the possibility to choose a thought system based in completion, based in love, based in an experience that is not of this world and is not offered by this world, but it can be experienced here. Meditators know a lot about this, so probably all of you guys do. But the whole point, and this was true for me, is to bring the experience of the meditation and walk with it with your open eyes. Live in that presence and in that experience. Not keep it just for the moments where you can be quiet and with your eyes closed, but dare to open your eyes in the middle of the meditation and then live your life in a meditation. Live your life in this very beautiful, peaceful state. Not in denial, but dare to go past the pain, you know? Dare to go past the hatred and the resentment. It's a daring. Because, for example, for those who have lost a loved one, I have a couple of people around me who have lost their children, and I cannot imagine the pain of losing a child. It's like the ultimate pain for a mother. I presume. It hasn't happened to me, but I presume. So there's a loyalty to the pain there. And this is something that when we work together, this comes up. How loyal am I to the pain? because the ego places guilt in your heart and says you can never be happy because you lost a child. And if you are happy and peaceful, you must feel guilty because you're not being loyal to your dead one, who requires you to be sad for the rest of your life. So these loyalties need to be let go. This is where, am I willing to be happy? Am I willing to be peaceful? Am I willing? It's all about me. Am I willing? I limit myself. I'm not limited. I limit myself with my beliefs, with my loyalties, with whatever triggers me feeling guilty.
Yeah. So every experience is like a call to witness what you believe. And the
Absolutely. Thank you.
And the
yes.
choices you're making in each moment, no? And what
because
you value.
We don't have a thermometer, right? I mean, can I place a thermometer and measure how happy I am or how sad I am? It's my emotion, my feeling is my thermometer. Just so I think it's very, very important to discover, to observe, discover how you are. I mean, how do you react to everything? How do certain things affect me? How judgmental am I? Am I willing to look at myself without any shyness? Just look at myself fully. You don't have to tell anybody else. Just look at myself. I look at myself and I see, what am I feeling? What am I seeing? What is happening with me? And then you will know the choices you have made. If you have chosen peace above all the terrific possibilities and scenarios that the world is offering you, you will know, because you will be facing these scenarios with a peace of mind. But if you have chosen otherwise, then that will be the reaction you get. And still you will do whatever was needed to do, but the experience would not be a peaceful one.
Can you experience two things simultaneously? So to experience this peace, you know, that you're talking about, and on this other level to experience some of the other feelings or emotions. Can you feel two things, you know, simultaneously? The peace of God, and no.
You remember when yeah, we can't serve two masters at the same time, but we do jump from one to another. This was the idea that I was giving you with the radio. You know, when you're in AM or FM, of course, the human species, I mean us, as peace seekers and mystics, we have these wonderful mystical experiences in the FM part of the radio, which is ourselves, our tuning. And then something happens and we get distracted and we look the other way and we've jumped out of that synchronicity, out of that peaceful mind state. But you haven't lost it. It's there. You've just chosen against it and been distracted by the world. Whenever and I live most of my day in peace. I'm saying most, not all, because and I know that I can be at peace all the time. So I'm working on it. But I still get triggered throughout the day for whatever reason. And my way back to peace is by relinquishing the importance of what was not peace and giving peace the utmost importance. And then my mind naturally goes back to the FM aspect of my inner tuning.
Very good. Thank you. I don't know, probably we can start to complete this.
Yes.
And I don't know whether you have any last things to say to everyone or anyone, if anyone has anything else to say.
Anybody want to add anything else?
They're quite satisfied or not. Who knows?
We don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you.
God bless.
Bye.
Have a lovely Sunday.